FPL Game Week 10, my team selection. We are talking, of course, about Erling Haaland and potentially Mo Salah in today's video, but we have just had a round of cup fixtures finish and we have had injury news. We've had players subbed off. We've had players left out of the squad. We've had quotes from managers saying players are undroppable and players are going to remain out. We'll cover all of that and what it means for my team. There are flags galore in FPL. If you are looking at your team and you have less than 3 yellow, orange or red flags in your lineup this week, then you are doing well. We're going to cover all of that, some potential transfers with 2 free transfers for me this week going into my Game Week 10 team selection. What is up everyone, FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. And a lot of questions, a lot of comments saying, I hope I get this man a cup of tea. I hope he's okay. He's always wearing jumpers. We're at the point in the UK now where the weather is starting to get cold, but we don't want to turn our heating on because it's so early because of how expensive heating is. So the fleeces and the jumpers are out at the moment until, well, they'll be on forever now until the end of the winter, but the heating is still off. So we're doing our best to keep warm when it does get a little bit colder. But before we get in and talk about Game Week 10, we're going to talk a little bit about Game Week 9. I did get a green arrow last week. It got 75 points. It was down to a few players. I did, of course, have Chris Wood, who scored twice. We have Bukayo Saka and we have Cole Palmer in my midfield with returns from Rico Lewis and Ryan Nori in my defense. Did give me a pretty healthy green arrow from 540k up to 286k. We're almost at the point. I said once we reach the next international break in a couple of weeks, that is when we will start to have a look at our overall ranks and start caring about what our overall ranks are. So I'm in a position where if we started caring now, I'd be happy enough with it. So over the next couple of weeks, I just want to be making sure I'm holding where I'm at, maybe going slightly higher, but I'm pretty happy with it. Again, it was above the safety score, up to 573 points overall. Let me know what you got. How are you doing so far this season? Let me know those overall point scores in the comment section down below. So we're going to dive in and have a look straight at some potential transfers. And there are 2 real routes that I could potentially go down this week. The first of all is the big all shining stars, the big sort of Haaland out transfer, Salah in transfers that lots of people are looking at this week. And that is Haaland down to Matheus Cunha, giving me money in the bank to do Mavididi of Leicester all the way up to Mo Salah. Mavididi didn't start for Leicester in the cup midweek, so we are expecting him to start at the weekend, which does mean there's a slight less boost to this because there was a chance that Mavididi didn't start. The other thing to caveat is Matheus Cunha was pictured with, well, not pictured, was said to have some ice on his knees doing training on Monday, but is expected to be nothing. There will be a Wolves press conference later on in the week. The other thing to add to this is Manchester City now have about 11 outfield fit players. They got injuries to Savinho and to Akanji. There's also now doubts to Gvardiol on top of that as well, who was getting a little bit of treatment after the cup game during the midweek as well. And with all of that, and De Bruyne being out, Walker being out, Grealish still being out, Doku potentially still being out as well, there's not really many players apart from Phil Foden and maybe Bernardo Silva to create chances for Erling Haaland at the moment, which does mean I'm not certain he's worth the 15.4 million. And it does potentially push me to be slightly more inclined to go and make these transfers of transferring Haaland to Cunha, who I think is a great option. Crystal Palace now likely to be without Eze for a few weeks as well. Then they have Southampton at home. And of course, go and bring in Mo Salah, who I really like and is starting to show real bonus point ability and not just have 7 points, but getting 8, 9, 10 point returns like we saw in Game Week 9 at the weekend. Now, the only other potential transfer, and the reason I might not do these moves, is because I'm absolutely fed up with Dominic Solanke. He's had 2 shots in the last 3 game weeks combined. That is the same number of shots as Calvin Phillips at Ipswich, and he is 10th for XG over those 3 weeks amongst all Spurs players. 10th amongst all Spurs players in a 3 game week span. In the cup last night, he also had no shots on target, no shots off target, and 1 blocked shot from 25 yards against Manchester City when they did score twice. I'm absolutely fed up with Dominic Solanke. He also, at the end of the game, was said to have looked absolutely knackered and very, very tired. Some potential reports that he even played with a slight knock in the end of the game as well. And with Richarlison not getting any minutes, I do think there's a small chance that we might see a Richarlison start in either Aston Villa at home or Ipswich at home. So I could decide to keep Haaland and just do Solanke to Cunha and maybe do the Haaland transfer out in a couple of weeks. I'm almost 95% certain that Matheus Cunha will be in my team by the game week 10 deadline. It's just whether it's in place of Solanke for one free transfer or it's in place of Erling Haaland and then to reinvest that in Mo Salah with the second free transfer. So just to have a look at how my team is lining up going into game week 10 at the moment. I really haven't decided on what transfers we're going to make, but we'll go through the lineup. David Raya starting in goal, and then we've got double up with Gabriel currently starting in defence. They are the 12:30 kickoff. Gabriel is considered a major doubt. We should know going into the deadline if Gabriel has travelled, because it is in Newcastle, so they should go up the night before, and hopefully we get a travelling squad bit of information. And going into the deadline, hopefully we get a little bit more news in the morning as well. Now, in the interview after the Cup game, Arteta was talking about injuries to Timber, who was taken off after 60 minutes just with a bit of fatigue. But he did also say in that we are without Gabby and we are without Ben as well. Gabriel and Ben White in their defence, which does make me think that maybe that's a slight slip from Arteta, where he doesn't usually give away much injury news, that they might be without Gabriel this weekend. However, I do have Mykolenko on my bench away at Southampton, and I don't think it's worth the transfer because from game week 12 onwards, I do still want Gabriel in my team, so I would be inclined to keep him and just let Mykolenko sub in. Of course, we also have Greaves, who has Leicester at home this week, which I would play and is a really nice fixture, but he does look like he's out until at least after the international break. We then have Ryan Aït-Nouri, who is on 4 yellow cards, but that does mean he should be available to play at home to Crystal Palace this weekend. And then we have Rico Lewis, who seems to be starting every single game for Manchester City. After the Cup game, Pep Guardiola also said we would ideally be resting someone like Rico Lewis with the amount of minutes he's played, but we don't have Kyle Walker at the moment, and basically he said we cannot rest him. Now, when managers tend to say that, particularly Pep, what we expect as FPL managers is this weekend Rico Lewis will be on the bench, but I just have to hope that I get 3 defenders out this week. There's a very, very small chance that Greaves is back, about a 5% chance. There's a 15-20% chance that Gabriel will play in my mind. There's about an 80% chance probably after that Rico Lewis starts. Mykolenko and Aït-Nouri should. So I just have to hope I get that third defender. And of course, David Raya starts. I do have Fabianski on the bench, who goes away to Nottingham Forest and does look like he's going to start the next couple for West Ham, who I could start over David Raya if there are lots of injuries in that defence. But at time recording, given that I have Chris Wood and given how good Nottingham Forest are going forward, plus a potential injury to Alexander Isak of Newcastle, I am going to stick with David Raya. We are starting Gabriel. We have got Aït-Nouri and we have got Rico Lewis as well. Into midfield at the moment, we don't plan on making the Salah switch. I think it's unlikely because I'm slightly more concerned about other players in my team, and it's a big move to go Haaland out, Salah in, and it's one of those that I only want to do if I'm really sure of it, and at the moment I don't feel like I'm really sure of it. We're going with Palmer and Saka. They both don't have fantastic fixtures this week. Saka is fit though away at Newcastle. Palmer goes away to Manchester United. Yes, maybe I'd prefer Salah over one of these two for the next couple. But in the long term, these are the two that I want and we're going to stick with them. As we are sticking with Brian and Burma as well. I feel like I'm building a solid 3 in my midfield with those 3 now that I can rely on and trust pretty much every single week. And then we are starting Mavididi for one final week away at Ipswich. We do have Semenyo second on the bench, but he does play Manchester City. To be honest, with the injuries they've got, it's maybe not completely the end of the world if he does end up having to sub in or have to play for me this week. But of course, it's not ideal. And I will really be focusing from game week 11 onwards when the Bournemouth fixtures start to look better. And Mavididi is getting one final chance in my team. Can he do anything against an Ipswich side who look like they've only got about one fit defender at the moment? Then we're moving up front. Haaland is in, and if I keep him, he will get the captaincy armband going away to Bournemouth. They've not been as good in their most recent game, but have scored 15 goals in their last 4 appearances against Bournemouth. Bournemouth have been better, though, than they have been in those previous seasons, so we'll have to wait and see. I do think Haaland will still get chances as he did against Southampton. I'm not fully confident. I could still end up moving to Salah, and if I do that, Salah would get the captaincy armband. Then it is Chris Wood, who's been very reliable. He is yellow flagged. We will wait for press conference news on Friday, but we are expecting him to be okay. He did say he just got trod on in the game on Friday night, which gives him over a week to recover for this. It's West Ham at home. I do expect him to be available. And at the moment, it's Dominic Solanke, but I am almost certain that Cunha will come in for either Haaland or Solanke. At the moment, I would say I'm 70% chance that it's Solanke to Cunha, and I'm about 30% chance that it will be Haaland to Cunha, Mavididi to Salah. Press conference news will change that. If Solanke looks like there's a chance he doesn't start, then that will mean I'm almost certain to sell him. If it looks like Solanke might start and Son is back, for example, then maybe I keep Solanke and do the other moves, depending on what the Manchester City injury update is to some of their creative players as well, like Savinho, even someone like Gavardio could potentially impact it. So I'm not going to make it look like I'm definitely going to make one of the two moves. I do think Solanke to Cunha is 70% chance, and Haaland to Cunha and Mavididi to Salah is 30% chance. I can't see myself doing anything outside of that unless we got a random bit of injury news. If Gabriel is likely to be out, I'll let Mykolenko sub in. And if one of the other attackers is likely out, I'll probably just let Semenyo sub in, given I only have 2 free transfers at the moment. And I know I have things I want to use them on over the next few weeks as well. That is team selection. There will be a video out on Friday evening, which is final decisions, where we discuss what we hear on the press conference. So I'll give you an update. And if I confirm any transfers as well before the deadline stream, which will be on Saturday morning. If you need a little bit more content from me as well, the new Know the Score podcast episode from Monday, reviewing the game week that was game week 9, talking about all the Premier League games, talking about Erik ten Hag being sacked. And the question of the week for you all this week is, what is the best late goal in Premier League history? There are loads of late goals at the weekend with Cunha, with the likes of, I can't even remember what some of the others were now, but there were a lot of late goals. The Cunha one is the one I remember because I'm looking to buy him, but there were definitely, Brian and Burmo was the other one. That's the one I'm thinking of. Let me know your best late goal, but if you want to listen to that episode as well, go and click the link above, go and check out that channel. I appreciate all of you that have headed over there and support that channel and podcast as well. It's a video on YouTube or on audio platforms if you want it there as well. Back to FPL though, if you want any questions about your team, drop it in the comment section down below. Let me know, would you do the Solanke to Cunha move or would you sell Erling Haaland? The Haaland in and out debate rages on this week, and I'm sure it will swing massively one way over the weekend. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.